Hello, everyone, and welcome to our deck lists. We're going to round out the Vertex Diva Center deck lists with the last DXM roundout, which is going to be Machina, or I guess Machina, excuse me. Machina is kind of an interesting one here. It's got a little bit of a split personality where it wants to be aggro, but it also wants to be a mill-centric deck. So you could basically do everything that you've seen before in the Deus deck profile, and it will probably end up being relatively close to the same. But rather than focus on something that I think to be maybe a less good version of Deus, I wanted to capitalize on Machina's uniqueness. And what it is unique in is in the fact that it does mills, right? So that's what we're going to focus on with this one. I don't think this deck that I'm about to show you is the most optimal deck in the world. I don't think you want to take it necessarily to a ceremony and you'll do super well with it, but it's a good baseline. And I think it straddles its identity as something that is aggro and something that is wants to be a mill-centric deck pretty well. So let's just quickly talk about Machina, what Machina does. So Machina's got the normal DXM gimmick where it has souls, and remember your level 0 is a soul as well. It's just not put on here because it doesn't have any text on it. And it's going to say that whenever a Signy on your field with a soul attached to it attacks, it will mill the opponent's deck by 2. It's got the normal action ability where you can throw out as many souls as you want and attach them to your Signy. And then it's got the once a game ability where you can exceed 3 and remove a piece from your Elrig deck. If you do, you can have up to 2 target Signies on your opponent's field, get negative 12,000. So pretty much 2 removal spells, which is great. It's very good. To open up 2 lanes is quite strong. The next thing is you've got its souls here, which is Machina 2, which is more or less removal, right? It's whenever it attacks, you can banish target level 2 or less Signy. And then Machina 1, which is whenever it attacks, you can add a Signy from your trash to your hand. So it gives you a little bit of recursion. The upside with, I guess, Machina 1 is, and I know this is a strange upside, is because it's so little, it is good, but it's so little obvious return on investment that Machina 1 and your level 0 souls might stick around for an extra turn. And if they do, then what you end up with is the ability to mill out your opponent by at least 1, 2, 6. So you might be able to get 8 or even 12 cards milled from your opponent with one card. And anyone who's played Phalaris knows that that's a pretty good number. But so we'll try to focus on these types of things and move forward with the deck list. So here is the deck list written out. And again, this is not, I'll go into everything in depth here in just a moment. But for the meantime, go ahead and write this down, take a screenshot of it, whatever you need if you want to decide to build something like this or practice with something like this. And you'll see that the curve on this one's actually a little different than most. The curve exists mostly in the level 2 slot. And that's because you really have the most power on your turn 2, right? That's when you're going to be, you're gonna have more late game stuff. So you want your late game to be level 3, level 2, or level 3, level 3, level 2. But you can use some of these to your advantage on turn 2 as well. Anyways, getting curve stuff aside. Let's talk about the Elrig deck. So running X Echo, you are running, I believe the number is 12. Let me count real quick. It's either 10 or 12. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 cards to run X Echo, and that's the minimum cards you need in order to run X Echo. So you will reliably be able to draw 3 cards off of its effect. And then it has the upside that when you, both of these, right, you've got two different ones here. Deus Recovery, for example, has a, if this is part of an exceed cost, same thing as X Echo. So this is one of the ones where you're actually going to get both ends of the spectrum here. And when you exceed using these, you'll get a bunch of extra effects. You'll be able to draw a card, discard a card, which is just okay filtering, but Deus Recovery is actually quite good. Being able to bring back something specifically from your trash that you need to win the game will help you out quite a bit. X Crossfire does the normal job of being able to give you a little bit of defense while simultaneously messing with the opponent's enter a little bit. You want to realistically pay 2 for that effect. You're not really trying to pay 3 for that effect. But Deus Shield is very strong and will stop you from getting hit with a ton of damage. And it mills yourself, which actually you don't mind here. It feeds your death deck piece, and that will help you get your second, or even this deck is capable of potentially refreshing someone out 3 times. So it's pretty crazy. And then you're running Trigger Victory again because you're straddling that that angle of being aggro and mill. Trigger Victory will help you also do that just by straight up crushing a life cloth. You got to remember that mill is probably the best form of damage. It's also just the most hard to pull off multiple times. But this deck theoretically can again do that 2 or 3 times. So if you get some early lane openings with your red, some late game lane openings with your black, and you can refresh twice, you pretty much have the game in the bag from those things. Moving right along, let's talk about Death Deck. What does that card do? Let's just scroll to it. I know I have it somewhere. I guess I didn't copy paste it down. 1 second. I will find it for us. I have it in one of my higher ones. Don't you worry. Here you go, Death Deck. Its use condition is that you got to have 2 or more black rigs on the field, which you've got. You'll be able to lane open with one of your target one of your signies, and it gets -12. Or one of your opponent's signies, it gets -12,000. Then choose the following for every 10 cards in your trash. You're very likely to have upwards to 30 cards in your trash. So think about doing this at least 2 times on average. You can return 2 target signies from your trash that share a color with your center L rig and add it to your hand, or you can put the top 10 cards of your opponent's deck into the trash. You're likely going to choose that second option. So this can mill upwards to 20 or even 30 cards of their deck, but I probably would mill like 20. And then let me see how this works here. If it does it one at a time, right? And choose one of the following for every 2 cards in your Okay, so you actually can only do twice. So you're only ever going to be able to mill 10 and put 2 signies back to your hand. I guess that's an important detail that I should have read, but sometimes, reading off this Japanese right away is a little bit difficult. But outside of that, you're going to be milling them, and you're also going to be returning stuff to your hand. But surprise, surprise, the stuff that you're going to be returning to your hand will end up milling the opponent more, so you'll end up getting that mill one way or another. Your level 1 slots are going to be Baphomet and Ball, so this is just self-mill stuff. That's going to feed into Death Deck as your piece, but it'll also turn on Baphomet pretty quickly. And the other one is going to be the level 1 with a life burst that says it can vanish 8,000 or less on the Signy on the opponent's field. And it's got the power 5,000. It's a new card that's coming out. Let's see if I've got the name here, which I do. Yeah, so this is what it does on English. She's got a piece of bread, and it's a good one, right? The Seed of Life Burst has always been a pretty good life burst, but the fact is you need a little bit more red, so the fact that you can get a little aggressive red in your level 1 slot with life burst is pretty good. Not to mention you're running your 4 guards. Like I said, your level 2 slot is actually going to be where most of your power comes from. You've got some really good life bursts in your level 2, so again, you're going to want to mulligan these away most of the time. But they'll open up lanes, right? And Globea will help open up some lanes more. The idea there being that you want to have open lanes to do damage to support your mill, right? You want your mill to basically be the final couple pieces of damage you need. It can't kill them, but you're going to need these to open up the last bits of the game, especially because you're not always going to be able to do your once a game exceed cost to to straight up open up lanes and win the game. So any little bit of game lane opening you can get will help. Again, this is an aggro deck. Don't forget. Like, this is partially a mill deck, but it also is an aggro deck, which explains the Lancelot here. But we also have Brutus over here. And Brutus is, when it attacks, as long as this is in your center lane, you can either mill 4 cards of your own deck, or you can mill 4 cards of your opponent's deck. So you want to put a little bit more mill in there, and it's actually quite strong to do a level 2 when it attacks mills your opponent, if you expect him to mill your opponent out. With that plus Phalaris on its own should be enough to start winning you the game in terms of mill. Let me see if I have that one down here. Yeah, there's Brutus, just so you can see it with the English text as well. It hasn't been revealed on Facebook yet, so I don't quite have it. And then your level 3 slots are going to be Dark Energy, Phalaris, Dragon Maid, and a Steampunk. Okay, so let's start with the top end. Dark Energy is good in the fact that it opens up lanes. You're going to have ways to do some negatives on other effects. So it's going to give you a little bit of energy charge. Again, it's not quite as good here as it is with Deus, but it will do the job. You're going to run 2 Phalaris. 2 is quite a large amount, but you will be milling your opponent out, so you want to be doing that. And let's talk about what these Japanese cards do. Dragon Maid allows you to, whenever a player refreshes, right? Any player, that could be you, by the way, too. So you might mill yourself out, and you actually could do it tactically to open up a lane. Then you can target 1 Signy on your opponent's field, and you may hit black. If you do, until end of turn, that Signy gets negative 10,000 power. It also means that since whenever it refreshes, right, you can use this to do damage to the opponent even when they're out of life cloth. Because they'll still refresh, you'll open up a lane, and then you can do the final damage that way. So worth mentioning. Whenever the Signy attacks, you can put the top of 4 cards of your deck or your opponent's deck into the trash. Generally speaking, you're going to choose your opponents with that. So again, you've just got a ton of access to mill with your level 3s. Your last one here is going to be Code H and Steampunk. During your turn, whenever one of your card moves from underneath your Elrig to one of the Signy on your opponent's field, or you can target one of the Signy on your opponent's field, and then you can pay a colorless. If you do, until end of turn, it gets negative 8,000. So more lane opening based on if you make souls or if you do any exceed costs. Your action, you can down 2 of your level 2 L rigs, and you put this card from the trash into the field. So it kind of helps you just stabilize a little bit in the late game. If you're running out of cards in hand, of course, you can always use this to start clogging up lanes. And you can use this if you're like, all right, it's time to go be really annoying, and basically every time they remove this Signy with a that we've attached a soul to, I can bring it back. That's one of the uses for it. So that's your level 3 slots. Again, very much focused on pushing through open lanes while simultaneously doing incidental mill to eventually mill your opponent out once, maybe twice, maybe even 3 times. The last ones will help push that as well. You've got 1 Animirage and 2 Deafening Infernos. These are just concessions you need some more life bursts, and you need a certain amount of red in your deck. It'll open up lanes fine and dandy, but they're pretty average here. They're not like utterly amazing. So overall, that's your Machina deck list. Again, I don't have super high hopes for this one, but I did lean into the mill theme while trying to make it as optimal as possible. That is one of those things that you do when you're making a deck based on a gimmick or some kind of maybe not great options. You try to make concessions to the theme to also try to make it quite good, and this is my sort of hybridization of that, right? Like, mill on itself will not win you the game. You need something else to back it up, whether you're using mill as a win condition and you're a control deck, or you're an aggro deck and you're using mill to create incidental more forms of damage, just like a second way to attack the life cloth. This is a way to do that. So that's this take on this, is you're using mill to incidentally mill while you're being aggressive, and then also you're just using the extra mill as another form of life cloth damage. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please let me know if you have any other ideas for Machina. Maybe you guys thought about a dream team that you wanted to put it on. Maybe you wanted to attach it with I thought about this, but I didn't go into it. Musica groovy, because you really want to mill your opponent out 8 times or something. Tell me what your thoughts are, and I hope you can always flip a life burst and subscribe for more deck tech videos.